I was looking forward to Empire of the Ants for two main reasons. One, I'm currently just watching a lot of horror films where the monsters, the creatures are a little bit ridiculous in a fun way. And the other reason is because I haven't seen that many 1970s horrors. In fact, out of all of the decades, probably as far back as the 1930s, the 70s is where I've seen the fewest films, and I'm trying to rectify that. So I thought, let's give this a go. And having now watched it, I can say it was fine. I didn't love it. It's nothing amazing, but it's a little suspenseful, a little bit silly, and it works well enough. This was released in 1977. It's directed by Brett I. Gordon. It's written by Gordon and Jack Turley. And we have a cast including Joan Collins, Robert Lansing, John David Carson. Strong performances across the board. The characters are very well written. I really liked the characters. I thought they were really interesting. And I don't think I connected with anybody specifically, but I did feel enough of a connection with them that I didn't want anybody to die. And that's not always the case with this kind of horror film, because often the characters are a little bit flat and they're not that interesting. But this one's not too bad. The story is actually from H.G. Wells, and I'm going to assume that the characters are the same in the short story. They could be completely different. I have no idea. I've never read it. If you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to share. But certainly the characters here I quite liked. And they're on this island. And this takes place at a land development site. Kind of. There's more to the narrative than that, but I won't go into too much detail about the background and the problems the characters are facing. But it's a well-written narrative, and the setting is really beautiful. It's filmed in Belle Glade in Florida and a couple of other places in Florida. Really, really stunning to look at. The only thing that isn't stunning is the giant ant. Well, multiple ants. They are rather large, and yes, some of it does feel like it was filmed in the 70s. It's maybe not the most convincing, but when it comes to this kind of film, I feel like nowadays, they're more cheesy fun horror than genuinely scary horror. But we do get some close-ups of the ants, and they do still look very creepy and a little bit disturbing, and I don't like ants in general. Not scared of them, but I'm not a huge fan of them, and there are some moments where they're battling these giant ants. And yeah, it looks cheesy, but it also looks pretty good as well. And I had a lot of fun with it. So I wouldn't exactly say it's a scary film. It's not a scary horror, unless maybe you're particularly phobic of ants, which is not unheard of. So if that's the case, then it might be quite scary. But in general, it's definitely quite tame. If you're quite new to horror and you're trying to get into the genre, but you're not sure if you're ready to go full force with the really terrifying films, this kind of thing would be really good for that, because it's a well-written narrative. The pacing is quite good. It's slow here and there, but in general, the pacing is quite good. The characters are well-written. The performances are good. I genuinely believed people were scared, and the ants do look... Well, they don't look too bad, actually. They're not horrendous, but they do look like a product of the time in some ways as well. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. Not if you're looking for a scary film, again, unless you're particularly phobic of ants, but if you like cheesy horror that's actually not too bad, then Empire of the Ants might be one that's worth checking out.